let's get some folks time to join us. Uh, Beach Family Homestead, how you doing? Not a problem. Those raspberries should do fine as long as the roots are pliable. And with as many as you have, by this time next year, you should have 3 times as many. If you can get those vines to grow, the best luck I've had with growing stuff with vines like that is when the vine touches the ground, just take a brick or a rock and sit on top of it and just let it root. And the next year you can cut past that brick, and then you've got a plant you can either leave there if it's in a good spot, or you can dig it up and move it somewhere else. And if you're going to dig up a plant, such as a tree or a bush like that, a good tip is once it goes dormant in the fall, take your shovel and go around the plant and go ahead and cut those roots and just leave it there for the winter. So in the spring, whenever it's time to plant, those roots are already cut, they've healed over, and they transplant a whole lot easier with a lot less shock. I've had a lot of good luck with that method. An old timer taught me that years ago, and it's worked on fruit trees, it's worked on shrubs, flowers, pretty much anything. After it goes dormant, just get you a good sized root ball and just go ahead and make that shovel. You ain't got to dig it up. Just cut those roots. Easy peasy. Yeah, I haven't seen that on YouTube myself, and I've watched a lot of folks like Danny at Deep South Homestead. I'm sure he knows that technique, just probably hasn't covered it. This fall, if I decide to move a big tree that I have, I'm gonna do a video on that. It eliminates so much of the shock, and they do so much better whenever they're establishing themselves in the spring and they start to actually do the new growth. It's just an all around great method. I was sitting here finishing up some epidemiology homework for a biology class, and it's time to go live, and it's time for a break from the old noodle up here because this is involving math, and I hate math. I despise math. That's why I did organic chemistry and biology and history. Work is a pain in the ass, Virginia. I'm not going to lie. I cannot stand fast food, even though I've managed restaurants for 27 years. That is what has made me hate Americans. Oddly enough, folks from other countries, they are so polite compared to Americans, especially drunk Americans. Yeah, I would love to meet Danny and Wanda in person. They're on my list of actual YouTube celebrities that I would care to meet. Hey, Christy, glad you made it. Actually, I'm going to school to get my GPA up high enough to where I'm guaranteed to get into the master's program for history. I'd like to teach college level history. And at the college that's closest to me, the only classes that I can take I can take are biology classes. And most of them I've already had years before while I was getting my associates in chemistry. But then I gave up on chemistry and went into history and just fell in love with it. And that's all she wrote. I got my 4 year in history and I want to get my master's. So I'm taking the biologies, and I learned real quick The upper level classes are always easier than the beginning classes. So I can't wait to get into the master's program for history because they're so much easier than the 4-year level ones. Mari's Vegetable Garden, I'm glad you caught me live. How are those seeds that I sent you doing? Did you get any that sprouted and do well in your climate? Because I know you're in very South Florida, if I remember correctly. American or world history, I'm leaning toward uh, 17th and 18th century, or 18th century and 19th century agriculture. Well, I hope those seeds do well for you, because I know you're what, zone 10B? Because I'm 8B, 9A, depending on the year. Excuse me while I be a redneck. Oh, wow, zone 11. Sweet tea out of the jug. Can't be any more redneck. Well, I could get a mason jar without a handle. That'd be pretty redneck, but this is real redneck. Yeah, I like my military history quite a bit, but agriculture is my main interest. And if you look on my page, you'll see I've got some historical agricultural videos in playlists. Even though I don't get credit for the view, it goes to them. I put them up just for historical purposes, and and just to see the way the old timers did it. Because to tell you the truth, a lot of the ways they did it back in the 40s and 50s are a lot better than the way we do it now. Yeah, zone 11 is probably the warmest zone we have in the country. It would compare to very southern California and the very tip of Florida. It's, correct me if I'm wrong, Mari, it's probably more tropical almost than subtropical. Well, I'm in the very southeast corner of Georgia, so I know a little bit about what cold is, and I have no business going any further north than where I am now because it snows more up there, and Morgan does not do snow. I'll put up with hurricanes any day to stay away from snow. And Mari, I know how you feel down there. I've had hurricanes the last 2 years worse than I can remember in my entire 48 years of existence. 3 years in a row, we've had tropical force or either hurricane force winds come through my area. So I ain't got to worry about the power going off for a long time because the hurricanes took care of those trees. Yeah, Gatlinburg, it would be a nice place for me to go in the summertime, but not the winter. Yeah, we had Matthew and the one the year before that. And it's odd for us to where I live in this part of Georgia for us to have a hurricane year after year, but it's happened 2 years in a row. And one year we had a tropical storm come through, so that's 3 years, which is really odd for us. Usually it's about every 3 to 5 years when we get a storm that serious, but I know Florida is just, it's like a trailer park for tornadoes as far as it goes with a hurricane. That's Florida. If there's a hurricane, it's going to hit it from one side or the other. But on the bright spot, if a hurricane does hit, it gives you an opportunity to rebuild and, remodel your home. So I guess there's a plus, and it helps you clear out vegetation you didn't want in your garden. So there's a bright side to it. Just remember, it's not the wind that kills you, it's what the wind is blowing that kills you. Well, how you doing, V. Dot Honey? Hadn't seen you in a couple days, which I haven't done a live stream in a couple days. I don't blame you. Sometimes it is financially feasible to get out there with a shovel and a hoe and redo your garden the old fashioned way instead of letting Mother Nature do it. Because I believe Puerto Rico is still redoing their garden, not to mention other things. Nothing like good old fashioned sweet tea, redneck style. I thought about pouring it in a glass and being sophisticated, but I saw how much I had left and I said, no, this ain't gonna last long. Why get a glass dirty? But my English peas, I haven't decided. I got a video I'm going to post later, and I've got to decide what to do with them. Either go ahead and replant the skips that didn't come up because I didn't get a good germination on them. They were some older seed. I'm not a big English pea eater myself, so I was either going to give them away or use them for goat and chicken feed. So between now and tomorrow, while I've got the time tomorrow afternoon, I'll have to decide if I want to just do away with them or what. And then I've got to fertilize my Irish potatoes and heal those up so I get a good crop of potatoes. But I actually had a better stand of potatoes than what I was expecting because weather and I got sick. It set me back about a week and a half in planting potatoes. So after I'd already cut them and they were dry, they were starting to get some mold spots on them. But they came up and they're all like yay tall now, a good 6 to 8 inches tall. So it's time to um, get those fertilized again. Even though I brooded out some chicks back in November, and I saved all the droppings and I put those underneath the potatoes. And everybody says, "Oh, the bacteria, you'll get E. coli." Da, da, da. I cooked my potatoes. I'm sorry. Plus, all the biology I've had, the droppings were already 4 months old. I'm not worried about E. coli. I'm not worried about Giardia or any of those other harmful bacteria. Because by the time that I dig my potatoes, those droppings are going to be 8 to 10 months old. So I'm not even worried about that. But I tell you what, it makes for some really green plants. And then whenever I fertilize and heal them up tomorrow, I might have to fertilize one more time because I fertilize lightly. I don't want too much nitrogen on them at once, and I use 5, 10, 15. That's my all-around general purpose fertilizer. But I want the root growth, so I don't fertilize a whole lot at once. I'd rather do it more often and get a little bit at the time than I would a big dose of nitrogen and have huge, big, tall bush with no potatoes at the bottom. So how's it? Well, I know how Beach Family's doing. They're getting their raspberries going, and I think you're going to have a lot more success than what you think with them. Because if the roots are pliable, they're probably going to sprout out. So how's the rest of y'all's gardening going? I hope it's doing better than mine because right now I'm pulling up mustards and collard greens that I didn't get to eat. I was too lazy or too busy to go pick and put up and preserve. So the goats got a belly full today, and the chickens they went to town on it. The hog she turned her nose up at it. She'd rather have grain. But hopefully this week I'll have some corn planted by the end of the week, and then I'll give it a probably till the 1st of April. Hopefully I'll have the corn about knee high by then, and then I'm going to plant. That's a little early for those around here for me to plant. I could probably do it and just if we get a light frost, get out there early enough and wash the frost off, and I'd be fine with cucumbers and squash. But I'm gonna have my. I haven't tried rattlesnake beans. I'm gonna get some seed and probably try those sometime over the summer. But my favorite are the half runners. I like white half runners. In some parts of the country, they're called state half runners. And hopefully by the end of March, I'll have my corn up almost knee high, and I'm gonna plant my beans there and let that be my trellis for the beans. And then in between the corn rows, I'll plant my squash, so that way it'll shade out the weeds. And it'll be like having the Three Sisters garden, except they won't be in a circle with little stick teepees growing up for a trellis. Yeah, I've done the Blue Lakes and contenders and stuff like that, and I just rather have the half runners. I've tried the Kentucky, the pole beans, and those things were nasty as hell. I ain't gonna lie, I didn't like them at all. Yeah, I'm gonna be planting speckled butter. I like the speckled ones better than the green ones, and I'll be planting some of them in about another week or two. Also, I'm gonna try and stagger it out so that way I don't have everything come in on me at once. And then I'll be planting some. I think I got Texas Cream 40 or either a zipper cowpea. I can't remember. They did. I like Purple Hull, but they didn't have them in stock at the time. But I like the Texas Cream 40. I'm not a big black eye pea either, but I like field peas, so I went with the others. And the pink eye Purple Hull, Texas Cream 40, and the zippers are my favorites. So I grow those pretty much. And whenever they start to slack off, they come out and another crop goes in. Yeah, they are. They're great nitrogen fixers. And they're great goat food too. So whenever I pull them up, I'll replant the same thing in that spot, and next year I'll rotate. I don't do much rotation during the year because I figure I've already got whatever's there. So why move it to another spot that it might get on something else? So I'll wait till next year to rotate, but I'll immediately pull those up, till the soil, throw some more seed down, and get a fresh crop going. because after about the second harvest off of them, the production goes down. And why would I want to waste my time weeding something that I'm not going to get as much off of as if I went through and just redid the whole thing? And corn, I'm going to plant enough to put up about 150 ears for myself. Um, if it's cream corn, I go ahead and cream it. But other than that, I freeze it on the cob. I just blanch the whole thing. And if I want whole kernel corn during the winter, I just let it thaw out and I cut it off the cob, or either I'll cook it on the cob and then cut it off. But cream corn, I'll go ahead and cream it. It takes me about 150 years, but I'm going to do my 150 years and then turn right around and keep planting that, because I'll just let it go for goat feed. I mean, for as much as it costs me to plant the seed, it's a whole lot cheaper than me buying a 50-pound bag of corn to feed them. You know, and the calcium to phosphorus ratio isn't quite enough calcium, so I give them supplements. But you know, as far as it goes, corn is one of their favorite treats. It ranks right up there with animal crackers. They love animal crackers. I can get out of my 3 goats, one of them will let me pet her. The other two, they will not let me touch them at all. But they'll follow me to the end of the world if I got animal crackers in my hands. And they'll eat all of them except for one that looks like a goat. They love the ones that are shaped like elephants. And they are very picky eaters. I put mustard and collards out there today for them. They tasted the mustard. Yeah, let me taste this over here. They tasted the collards. They went berserk on the collards. And I hate it for them. That's all the collards I had. That row is gone. They started off with the flower end and ate all the way down to the root nub. So if the pig wants any, all she's got left is the roots, poor old thing. Some mustard can be spicy, but I like mustard greens, and turnip greens a pretty good bit. And mustards, I can't really tell if I like mustard better than I do turnips or not, but by themselves, nah. I gotta have hot sauce on mine. I am a true redneck from the South. I've got a hot sauce for turnip greens. I've got a different one for mustard greens. I've got a different one for collard greens. I've got a different hot sauce for hot wings. I've got a hot sauce for fish. Hot sauce is like my salad dressing. And I actually put hot sauce in salad. And that stuff you buy at the grocery store, unless it comes from Mexico, they got some really good hot sauces. Most of that stuff at the grocery store, like Texas Pete, I could drink that with a straw. That ain't even hot. I had some Mexicans that I used to work with when I did concrete work a few years back. They bought all the peppers, and I had Tabascos, jalapenos, habaneros, Anaheims, serranos, and I would just pack a Ziploc bag full and say, "This is how much I want for them," and they would buy it, no questions asked, because they knew it was fresher than Walmart. And I learned that whenever you it doesn't matter what color the pepper is. You look for those little brown cracks down the jalapeno. When they get those little brown cracks, that's the hot. If they ain't got brown cracks, they're not as hot as they can be. Working with those, the Mexicans taught me a lot. A gallon of it would do me by myself about a year. And this year, instead of doing the traditional way that most people do pickles nowadays with vinegar, I'm actually going to ferment my hot sauce, like Michelini's brand hot sauce, which is by far the best American made hot sauce we have is Michelini's. They're from Louisiana. They have their own variety of pepper, and you can't get it. They won't sell the seed. Unlike Heinz, which finally came off of the variety tomato they used for their ketchup a few years back, and made a killing off of that because people thought that they could make ketchup like Heinz out of it. Heinz sold them the tomato; they just didn't tell them how to use it. But I'm gonna do all of my pickles this year: peppers, cucumbers, squash, okra. I'm gonna ferment all of mine. To me, it has a much better flavor and it's more traditional the old ways. My great aunt used to ferment pickles, and those were the best dill pickles I've ever had in my life. As a matter of fact, my mom found a jar of hers that were probably 15 years old from right before she passed away about 15 to 20 years ago. And I opened them up and I ate the whole jar by myself. My mama was mad because she wanted some of those pickles. And the only thing that she did after the fermentation was she would put some green food coloring in them just to make them that bright green. But it had that fake Martian green look to it. But I didn't care; they were good. Yeah, I think that's the main um, headquarters for Heinz because I know they have another farm and plant. I want to think in New Jersey, somewhere up north, which I'm sure they've got more than just one. You know, as much ketchup as they make, they've got to have more than just one. But that might be their main place where they do. Yeah, Bush's Baked Beans is up there. I had a friend that he did a one stringed banjo. He called it a canjo, but found out that he couldn't call it a canjo because somebody had already trademarked the name. And he would sell those at Dollywood. And in the space of 3 months, he made like almost $30,000 selling these one string banjos. And Bush's Baked Beans saw them, so they had him make them. I think 150, 200 at the time, and they sold those in their gift center. I probably am going to do a video on fermenting pickles. You know, a lot of these guys they've been doing. Yep, the Canjo. And if you look him up, his name is Joe. Oh goodness, if I hadn't even brought him up, I could remember his last name. He's on YouTube playing the Canjo. He's an older guy with a Pratt family beard. Oh, I can't think of his name, but yeah, he made a bunch of them, and he's on disability, and he got to the point that he was making too much money, or they were going to cut him off disability. So he wound up selling the Canjo business to his brother for about 40 grand. Now his brother sells them up at Dollywood every year, and this man can do anything with a piece of wood. He was an expert carpenter till he injured his back like I did, except he fell off scaffolding and I got hurt in a car wreck. But now he builds birdhouses and stuff like that in intricate detail and doll houses. It The man is amazing when it comes to a piece of wood. He is just awesome. But he still makes a few of the canned joes and sells those around at little, festivals and stuff like that. So he hadn't completely got out of the business. But oh, Cutshaw, that's his name, Joe Cutshaw, Cutshaw. And I think there's even a video on YouTube of him playing dueling canjos with somebody else. Because I mean, how can the thing be out of tune? It's only got one string. You don't even have to tune it. And whenever you bought it, he had the picks were made out of milk jugs. He cut little triangles out of the milk jugs. There was your pick. He had a little song book, and he had the frets numbered, and all you had to do was follow by the number. And he had like 10 or 15 songs in the song book. He made a killing off of those things. And he used to love being my neighbor because he said I planted him a grocery store. Because at the time I was with a crazy woman. I've never been accused of being frigid or bashful for that matter. But he loved living next door to me because it was just me and the crazy woman I finally got rid of. And I had chickens and I had a garden, not even half the size of what I got now. And I was always giving them stuff. And he said, "Man, you planted a grocery store for us," because I was constantly here. Joe, you want some of this? Joe, you need some peas? Joe, you want some okra? How about some squash? But he was from up there around Tennessee originally, and I always can tell when somebody's from Tennessee, especially whenever they say Ewans. I looked at him one time. I said, "What the hell is a Ewan?" He said, "Oh, that's kind of like what you say whenever you mean y'all." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." It still don't make no sense. Ewans. You'll get to see it on the video that I post tonight. I've got a lot of winter weeds that I've got to take out of my purple onions and my Vidalia onions because I actually can call mine Vidalia because I live in the area that's designated as a Vidalia growing area, even though I'm not in Vidalia, Georgia. Yep, he said that one too. But if you guys grow onions and you're somewhere where you can grow short day onions, and like in the South, we grow short day onions. Up north, they grow long day onions. And the variety for Vidalia onions is Texas Grano 502 or Gran X 33, or pretty much any of the Gran X hybrids are Vidalia onions. And you can buy them by the seed. And I recommend that over the little dried bulbs because half the time the dried bulb doesn't make an onion. It'll just produce a seed head. So you can plant them from seed in round about July, August, and then by September, October, whenever it's time to plant them in the ground for overwintering, you've already got them yay tall. You've got a head start on it. And you'll get bigger onions that way. Plus, you don't want anything in the ground but the roots. You want as much of the bulb above ground as possible. And whenever I go to clean up around my onions, I'll do a video on that about pulling that dirt away from the bulb. That way, the bulb expands out and you get a bigger, flatter onion, better for onion rings, all around better for storage. Variety wise of hot onions, no, but I know that yellow are sweet onions, purple are sweet onions, white are the spicy, hotter ones. but I don't know any variety names of the white ones that I can tell you, because where I am, all we get are short day onions, and there's not very many white short day onions. So I just stick with purple and uh, the Vidalias. This year, I bought my onions by the bundle, the plants themselves, but I plan on doing the seed thing next year, because in the long run it is cheaper. I was spending $5 on 50 Vidalia onions when I can get $5 worth of seed and have 2 to 500 onions. And I've been doing an experiment on garlic. I planted my garlic bulbs, and I buy grocery store garlic. I didn't buy nothing fancy, although I'm going to get some elephant garlic because I want some of that. I like it. It's a milder flavor. But I planted some garlic bulbs in the fall, and then about 3 weeks ago, I planted some more garlic bulbs that I had in the refrigerator to stratify to make them think they went through winter. And so far, they're up about this tall, and I'm going to see which one produces the best bulb come harvest time, which I'm pretty sure I know the ones that I planted back in the end of October are going to be the biggest. But I just wanted to, you know, see how it turned out. Yeah, I like purple for Mexican cooking because it gives it it goes along with the hot sauces they use, and I like the purple onion and stuff like potato salad, for the visual effect. None of them came up. That's odd. They may have been planted too deep. Whenever I plant onion seed, I usually just sprinkle them over the top of the dirt, and then I just press down with my hand to give them good contact with the soil, and then I spray water on them with big droplets, and that way it usually gives them enough soil on top that they don't get buried too deep. I don't know if I've ever had Chinese garlic, but elephant garlic gets a clove about as big around as an aspirin bottle like that. Just the individual clove can get that big, not the whole ball with the bunch of cloves in it. It can grow really big, and it's got a milder flavor. Christie onions are so expensive in the store. If you ever grow onions on your own and you learn how to get them put up where they don't all go bad, personally, I take pantyhose and I'll drop an onion to the bottom, and I'll take a bread tie and I'll twist it off, then I'll drop another one, and I keep doing that. That way, if one onion goes bad, it doesn't spoil all my onions. All I got to do is just slice that piece of the stock and then throw that onion away, because you'll save a ton of money just on onions. Because I mean, who doesn't use onions to cook with? All right, Beach. I'm glad you got some videos up. Looking forward to seeing more, but we'll see you back in a few minutes. Yeah, you'll save a ton of money by growing your own. I mean, where I am, I get by day onions, a 5 pound bag for two and a half, $3. And I'm sure they're probably more expensive than that wherever you guys are, but I can grow 5 pounds of onions for $1. including fertilizer, electricity to pump water to them if I got to water them, seed, everything. $1.15 if I buy the plants instead of the seed. I've got to get me some flower bulbs. I want to get some gladiolas. For some reason, I love gladiolas. They're second behind rose, and then the third that I like are I had just thinking about it. They grow from a rhizome. Dahlias. I love dahlias. I haven't really noticed an increase in potatoes, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be an increase in a lot of prices, especially with this trade war with China going on, because they don't. You can grow the grocery store potatoes, but if you've got a, a garden center somewhere that sells seed potatoes, usually they're about half the price of what's in the grocery store. They're just dirtier. And whenever I plant potatoes, I go get 15 pounds for me to plant and then another 15 pounds for me to eat because they're half the price of the grocery store potato for the same thing. They're just dirtier. You just brush the dirt off, wash them up, and go. Oh, yeah, I hit Lowe's on that markdown and get them nasty looking plants that they write off for dead. If I buy a flower for the yard, that's what it is. I bought 3 roses last year and I spent a total of $15 on those 3 roses. And in a month, I had those things so well watered and taken care of that they were putting on blooms, and they bloomed all summer until they were blooming into the fall until I got the goats, and the goats got out the first time, and that's the first thing they went for was their roses. So needless to say, I didn't have to prune roses this year. And as a matter of fact, they got mad at me this afternoon, and I've got to check my electric fence. It didn't shock me whenever I touched it like I thought it normally would. So I got something grounding out my fence. It might be time for me to break out the Roundup and the atrazine and go down the fence line, because that's about the only place I spray herbicides is down my fence line, because I'm not fixing to go out there and kill myself with a weed eater trying to keep that grass down and have to redo it. I spray twice a year for grass and weeds under my fence line, and that's it. I'm done. No more. Thank you, Mari, and you have a good day at work. And if you can't have a good day at work, just piss somebody else off, because if we can't all have a good day, nobody deserves to have a good day. I don't blame you if they were already sprouting. If you weren't planning on eating them right then, because they start to get soft after the eyes start to sprout, I would have planted them. I've used grocery store potatoes. I've planted them in the garden. I wouldn't even know what to look for in Aldi's. I've never even seen one where I live. I've heard of them, but that's a grocery chain that doesn't make it down this far. Oh yeah, and some of them, most of the roses you buy are grafted so that they can mass produce them. Well, they have to be grafted, or otherwise, you grow one from seed, you never. It's the only one in the world that looks like that rose. So if you plant rose seeds, you can get a rose that nobody else in the world has unless you give them a cutting off of it. And a lot of them don't root very well. They're prone to disease, so they'll graft them onto different root stocks. And I've actually moved roses from one place to another and left pieces of roots in the ground, and the original rose sprouted out of it. And I wound up with a variety of Rugosa rose, which is just an older. Uh, it's not a tea rose or anything like it. It was a single instead of a double leaf rose. Very pretty, and it grew into a massive hedge shrub. And I was kind of glad. I liked it. But yeah, you can grow roses from root cuttings. Broussard's in the house. How you doing? Nice to see you guys. I saw part of what you were talking about at the gathering, and I like the way you had the goat in the bag. That's a whole lot better and more practical than Paris Hilton and her little dog in the bag. Nah, you're not late. Sometimes we'll stay on and talk for 2 or 3 hours. It just depends. But we've been talking about what's going on in the garden. It's a little late in the year for my English peas, and my seed were old, so I've got to decide. Do I want to try and replant those that didn't come up, or do I just want to give up on them because I don't eat them very much myself? I feed them to people who want them, or they go to the chickens and the goats. And then I've got to fertilize my Irish potatoes. I actually got a good stand on those. They're about 8 to 12 inches tall now, so it's time for me to fertilize and heal them up, get them ready to put on some taters for me. And I pulled up so many collards and mustard greens that were going to seed and bolting. The goats, they got tired of eating greens. They had to go eat some hay before they bloated. The chickens, they couldn't even finish them all, and I still got half a row of mustard left. Oh, that that really hits you whenever you run across things that remind you of people that you don't have anymore. And I hope you took some cuttings off of those roses, or either were able to move them. Well, maybe that one potato that sprouted will give you enough so that you can have hamburgers and French fries for dinner one night. I've got blueberries across the road from me because where I live, my county is the blueberry capital of Georgia. We produce several million pounds of berries a year, so there are beehives everywhere. I get plenty of bees from those guys, and I thought about adding a hive or two myself for a little extra income. But I don't know if I want to get into bees business because personally, I don't like being stung. It's a little too painful. Yeah, I'd get you some cuttings. That way you'd have them. And besides, it's probably a variety that you could find the name to, and if not, then it's something that you've got that no one else has. That's great because roses are one of my favorite things. I was going to do cuttings this year. I've got an old variety, what they call Seven Sisters. It's a cluster about yay big around, and on average, there are seven double roses in each cluster, and they smell amazing. Hey, Beach family, glad you're back. Broussards, the Broussards have joined us. If you may have met them at the gathering, because I think you guys were both at the gathering. Or wait a minute, am I thinking of somebody else at the gathering? I think I am. I'm thinking of the Aldermans. I know they were at the gathering too. But I've been meaning to sub you, Broussard, because I've been watching some of your videos, and I just haven't gotten around to hitting that subscribe button because it always pops up on my list, and I just keep forgetting to hit the subscribe button because you're always one of the top ones on my next autoplay list. Fuchsia in color and smell amazing. Um, I think it is, but if it's the one I'm thinking of, there are several different names for that one specific variety. And I'm still trying to think of the name of it. Heirloom was the name of it. Heirloom was the name of it. It was a fuchsia colored, had the classic rose smell. One flower would fill the entire room full of rose fragrance. And I haven't been able to find it since I worked in a garden center 25 years ago. And I didn't get myself one when I should have. That's great. If your granddaughter gets a kick out of doing that, that's amazing. Get these young kids into it. My dad pressured me into doing a lot of gardening whenever I was younger, and I hated it growing up on a farm. I swore I'd never live on a farm or grow a garden or anything. And I boycotted that, but then I fell in love with growing roses, so it led me back into gardening, and one thing leads to another. Here I am with goats, pigs, chickens, uh, almost a half-acre garden, and it's just me by myself. I don't need that much food, so I give a lot away to food pantries and people, the older people that can't get out and garden anymore. So I give away a lot. After I've got what I need for the year put up, the rest of it's given away, and then I replant and keep going. And I'm fixing to start me a few watermelon seed in pots, along with part of my Cherokee tan pumpkin seeds. And then I'm going to wait and start the other half of my Cherokee tan seeds whenever they'll be able to ripen up right around first frost, which is around the 1st of November, second week of November for me. But I want to get some of those Cherokee tans growing now, so that way I can not only get a jump on the season, but I get to taste them. I can't wait to taste one. Baby steps, my friend. Find you somewhere where, if you're not already in that place, if you don't own your own property, find you somewhere where there's a family that have a lot of kids and the parents are older, because a lot of times the kids will, instead of keeping the land, they'll sell it off and divide it for the cash because they're greedy. And they ain't got time to farm or don't want to farm. So between time, no interest, and greed, a lot of these things get sold, and you'll be able to buy you a few acres and get back to it. Now, for powdery mildew, if you want to go the organic way, you can put a couple tablespoons of baking soda in a gallon of water and spray your watermelons with that. It changes the pH on the outside of the leaf, and the powdery mildew lives at a certain pH. So when you put that baking soda on there, it raises the pH of the leaf surface, and the powdery mildew doesn't have a chance to take hold and survive. And if it's already there, it'll get rid of it. Yeah, if you water any of your vegetables, the best time to do it is first thing in the morning, so that way they're already wet with the dew from the night, and then the sun dries them off in the day. You want them to be able to spend as much time dry as possible, especially tomatoes. You don't want the water to splash up on them from the ground or anything. You always water the ground at the tomato instead of across the leaves, because that splash up is where you get a lot of your um, bacterial diseases such as wilts and things like that. And then you've got your insect vectors, which is thrips and aphids. When they come in, they'll bring in tobacco spotted wilt or tobacco mosaic virus, several other diseases. Personally, I'm not organic, but I use the mildest chemical I can get for pesticide. I used to be in pest control years ago, so I learned a lot about it. And I learned that if they say use 1 tablespoon for a gallon of water, I've learned that a half a tablespoon works just as good. Plus, pyrethrin is made from African daisies. So if you plant African daisies, which are perennial in most places, in your garden here and there, and just leave them, that'll deter insects a lot. Plus, you can take the flower heads off of those daisies and soak them in water. Or if you smoke, or if you don't smoke, you can get chewing tobacco. Put that in a gallon of water and soak it in the sun all day, and then the next day you can spray that on your plant, and the nicotine will kill any of the bugs that are on there, and then you've got an organic insecticide right there. So I'll use inorganic before it sets fruit or vegetables, and once the stuff that I'm going to eat is on there, then I'll get some chewing tobacco, soak it in water, and then I'll spray that, and that pretty much takes care of anything I got. But it only lasts for a day or two, and then you got to do it again. And pyrethrin is like $30 a quart, so it's really expensive, but it is organic. And the longest wait time on that for anything that you can pick is 48 hours. Most things you can spray in the morning and pick them that afternoon, and there's no harm at all to you. Chrysanthemums are a good deterrent for bugs. Marigolds are. And another thing I like to do is diversion plantings. I'll plant a bunch of stuff off in the corner that I have no intention on harvesting at all. So if the bugs get in there and eat it, that's fine. They can stay there. And then whenever it's run down or ragged or whatever, I'll let the goats run through, clean it up. They'll eat it down to the ground. It'll grow back, and the bugs will stay there instead of going into my garden. Neem is a good organic one. Insecticidal soaps work pretty good. But now, as far as aphids go, if you get a strong blast of water on those aphids and you knock them off the plant, 99% of the time, that'll take care of your problem because they can't get back to that tender tissue at the top of the plant before they die. You probably had the if your squash just wilted and died, you probably had the squash vine borer beetle. And if you'll look at your squash when they start to wilt, just trace that vine back to where it starts to wilt, and you'll see that hole. And you can actually cut it open with a sharp knife, and you can pull that sucker out and squish him. Or either you can cut that vine off and burn it and get rid of him. But as far as those go, I'll take my chances on a pesticide with them because they can be very hard to deal with. And I'll pesticide those guys, and I'll just wait a few days before I pick anything. Yeah, if I get squash bugs, chickens will do a number on your garden. But all I got to do is run my chickens through for about 5 or 6 hours. Then I ain't got no squash bugs. I might have holes in my squash and then some tomatoes, but I ain't got no more bugs. I need to try and raise some guineas. Guineas won't eat your garden, and they don't scratch. They just eat bugs. And I wouldn't mind them free range in my garden. But I've got a real bad hawk problem, and for some reason, I've had 3 hawks die from lead poisoning, and nobody can figure it out. But I'm not complaining. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I haven't done anything illegal. That's the problem with guineas. They will have a tendency to wander off and never be seen again. Plus, they're not as smart as a chicken, so a chicken roosters are good to have around because they protect their flock. And they'll see a hawk and they'll, hey, y'all run for cover. Guineas are dumb. They'll sit right out there and be hawk bait. Bruno, it was nice to have you. Thanks for stopping in, and I hope to catch you on another live stream sometime. But you have a good night. Yeah, Chickens are pretty dumb, but then again, chickens are pretty smart too. They know whenever I've got feed in the bucket, and they know when I don't. How they know, I have no clue. They can't see through the bucket, but they know if it's empty or not when I walk by. Old hug from, so you're from Brazil. Oh, what do I have here? This is good old Southern sweet tea. Now, the little white bucket, they know as food because their food comes out of the little white bucket. So they naturally go nuts over that. But any other bucket, nah, they know. I reckon they can tell by the posture of me walking it's got something in it or not. I don't know. But chickens are dumb in many ways, but in other ways, they are very intelligent. Yeah, my chickens will follow me anywhere. I mean, I've actually stepped on one's head, thought I killed it, poor little old thing. I mean, I can't walk. There's if I let them all out, they're right there at my feet. And I've got one cat named Cell Kitty because I don't like anything on my feet. I live in the South. There's rattlesnakes and stuff, so I'm always looking at my feet whenever I walk. And if I can't see my feet, I go nuts. And this cat gets on my feet, so I just whoop, through there he goes. So he got named Cell Kitty because he goes sailing quite a bit, especially the night that I had 35 tomato plants all about that tall, and he dumps them out at 4 o'clock in the morning, wakes me up, and I come in here and I see him all over the floor. He was fly kitty that night because I grabbed him by the scuff of the neck, opened up the front door, and flung him out. There wasn't no gentleness to that, and he hit something on the way to the ground. I don't know what it was, didn't care. Aggravates the devil out of me. And then I've got another cat named Easy Boy. He's so easy going, laid back. He's been fixed and still catches squirrels and rabbits. We're glad that you stopped in, Broussard. And I will definitely, next time I watch one of your videos, I'm going to make myself a note, a little sticky note, and stick it on my computer screen. Whenever I watch your video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because I've been meaning to. But you always pop up right there at the top of my autoplay list. You've got some good videos, and I've picked up a few little tips here and there that I'm going to put into use. That is good advice because if you wear flip flops, you're going to get bit by ants. You're liable to get your toes sliced off with a hoe. Anything. Always wear shoes. Brazil's got a good agricultural program. One of my biology professors is from Brazil, and she's done a lot with their biology program back and forth between the U.S. and they're helping them, and they've got an amazing selection of stuff and an amazing agricultural growing zone. They've got zones comparable to ours weather wise, even though they're in the tropics. They've got you know different elevations, and the stories that she tells about the agriculture down there, they're progressing, and they're actually a very big producer of soybeans, and they compete with us against soybeans and stuff like that. 8 Central will be 9 o'clock for me. I believe I can make that time. I will try and check you guys out on your live stream, which I'm sure I'll see the notice, so I'll set myself a reminder. Well, I'll write myself a sticky note whenever I get through with this live stream too, so I'll catch you then. And I was telling you guys about the chewing tobacco and stuff like that. If you got goats, a little bit of chewing tobacco, it's a great dewormer. I've got to find some tobacco seed. I need about 10 or 15 plants. That'll do me for making homemade pesticides, and then give a leaf, because the leaves, they can be 3 foot long and 2 foot wide. So if I give each goat a leaf, it's not going to hurt them. And by the time they get through eating that, the next day they'll be pooping worms out all over the place. I had an ex that used to take money and hide it in books. That way, if I didn't buy beer that day for her, which is one of the main reasons why we're not together now, because I don't like to drink as much as she did, and I was spending too much money, so I was trying to cut her back, and she would hide money. So whenever we broke up, I went through all the books that she left here, and I bet I found $100 in fives, tens, and twenties that she had stashed in those books that even she forgot about. This is getting a little bit warm. Excuse me, guys. I got to go put this in the refrigerator and exchange it for something else. Here I am complaining about her and her drinking, and I got a can of beer now. But I only bought a 6 pack, and I've got 2 more in the refrigerator. And the only reason why I bought it was because a friend of mine passed away, and in his honor, I drank a beer. And then the next night, I drank 2 beers. So now I've got 2 more left, and I probably won't finish those tonight. So a 6 pack usually takes me a week to drink. And normally I only buy it if I'm going to be cooking with it. But I figure after the day I've had, a Guinness brownies. Is that a type of Guinness beer, or is that brownies made with Guinness beer? That's true, Christy. Because these, I've been trying for a while to give up. I've cut back a whole lot, but I have not quit yet. And I need to. I spend too much money on them. And matter of fact, I'm not big on government at all. But if they passed one law and that was no more manufacturing or importing cigarettes, I would be fine with it. Now that sounds interesting, because Guinness is good beer, but it's a little strong for my flavor. I'm not big on Heineken or stuff like that, but I do like, if I drink Heineken, it's got to be room temperature. You can't be cold. I'll drink it like Germans do. They don't drink cold beer. Cold beer is an American thing. But there's a French beer called Kronenbocker that is excellent, and I like Michael Shea's Irish Amber. I've only had it a couple times. I can't find anywhere around here that sells it, but that is the best beer I've ever had. And Killian's Irish Red, I love it. And actually, Mexicans drink Modelo, and Modelo is an excellent beer. It's better than any American. Well, American beer, I'm not that fond of. Although this is Keystone, it's not bad. But if I'm drinking American beer, I'm gonna go with Michelob Light, or I'll go with Coors Light. Other than that, I'm not really. Even Sam Adams, I'm not really into, and that's supposed to be one of the primo things, but I'm not into it. So, how do you do the Guinness in the brownies? Do you just replace the liquid with the Guinness? If so, I might try that one day. Personally, I'd rather just get some good bud, saute it in the butter, and then use that in my brownies. And yeah, I like this. I like the hippie brownies. And everybody thinks that you got to put the bud in the brownie. No, you don't. You saute on low heat, and the THC comes out of the marijuana into the butter, and then you put the butter into your brownies. But you definitely don't throw away the marijuana after you've sauteed it in the butter. You just eat that while you're waiting for your brownies to get done, because there's still a little bit of THC in it. And eating marijuana will get you higher than smoking marijuana, because there's a chemical process it goes through whenever it's being burned and you inhale it. The THC changes, and you will actually get higher by digesting it than you will by inhaling it. Little tip I learned back in the days when I was a pothead and studying chemistry. If I open it, I might as well take a sip of it. Now I remember why I don't drink beer that often. I would drink wine, but I don't care if people say it's sissified or not. But hangovers you get from wine, whoo, it's worse than any hangovers you'd ever have. I was wondering what that sound was. It was a Facebook notification. I'm not dealing with Facebook. Every other post is about my classmate that passed away, and I'm trying to get over that. So I've been off Facebook for a couple of days, other than the post on the YouTube group. Definitely, because that will get people's attention. I think that would probably be one of the first videos I would put up if I were you, because beer and brownies doesn't sound like it would go together. And whenever you put a title up and word it just right, it's going to get attention and people are going to click on it just because of that. And then they'll see that recipe and you'll probably get a pretty good amount of views and probably a few subscribers from it. Yeah, wine has so many sulfites in it as preservatives, and sulfites dehydrate you so bad. The hangovers are horrible from wine, especially red wines. But now, if it's homemade, it's a whole different story because you don't put any of those sulfites or anything in. Or if I do it, I don't use sulfites or anything in it. Mine's just pure old fashioned wine and let it sit and age until it gets nice and flavorful and fruity and it's good. And I don't get a hangover from it. But man, you talking about a bad hangover, wine will give it to you. And I think red wine's worse than white wine, which I'm not. There's a couple red wines I like, but I'm more of a white wine person or a blush or Zinfandel. I like those. I like the blush and the Zinfandels because they pretty much go with anything, like red meat, red wine, fish, chicken, white wine. Personally, I don't give a damn. Whatever wine tastes good with whatever I'm eating is what I go with. I don't care what color it is. But Zinfandels and blushes, they and rosés, they go pretty good with just about anything. And the other half of my row of beets still hadn't come up, so I guess I'll replant those. But the first half, I got a pretty good stand. I'll have enough to pickle some and roast a few. Still hadn't gotten the carrots or radishes. I think I might have got those too deep, or either the rain that came afterwards washed them somewhere else, and then they'll come up somewhere where I don't notice them. Yeah, wine is really good to cook with, especially whenever it's a savory dish. I don't know. Some desserts I have done wine in desserts, and it was pretty good. But I like wine in my savory dishes, like roast beef. A little bit of red wine in that gives it an amazing flavor. But sometimes you get hold of a wine that ain't good for anything other than to take the top off and let it sit there and turn to vinegar. Either that or use it to catch slugs and snails. The house I'm living in, the fellow that moved it here about 60, 65 years ago, he we drink, not let his wife know how much he was drinking, and he liked Night Train and Richard's Wild Irish Rose. And when my brother-in-law bought this place and had to go up under the house to redo the plumbing, he said he pulled out probably 400 or 500 bottles. And he's he bought the place 25 years ago, and now I'm here, and I have found both of those bottles. They're still turning up. Yeah, wine does tenderize meat. Vinegar will tenderize your meat too if you can handle the vinegar flavor. But then again, if you cook with vinegar, you're probably like me and you have different types of vinegar, not just apple cider vinegar and white vinegar. I mean, there's tons and tons of different vinegars out there, and they're all unique in their flavors, and they lend something to the cooking process. Oh, here's something funny. Georgia passed a law against abortion called the heartbeat bill. If the fetus has a heartbeat in Georgia, you can no longer have an abortion after that point. So this nutty ass congresswoman for the state of Georgia in the state legislature, she introduced a bill to make it a criminal assault, a felony criminal assault for a man to have sex with a woman without wearing a condom. Okay, that's stupid. She also wanted it to be against the law for a man to get a prescription for Viagra or any other erectile dysfunction drug without notifying his wife or sexual partners beforehand. And then to ice the cake, she wanted to make it illegal for a man to have a vasectomy. Yeah, I really see that bill going very far. It stands a great chance of winding up being another piece of paper that gets shredded up for compost. Yep, there's a vinegar for every occasion. But yeah, I read that yesterday in the news, and I laughed so hard I almost peed on myself. Felony assault, not to wear a condom, can't have a vasectomy, and can't get Viagra. We have got some people in elected places that just, what the hell are we doing with ourselves when we elect stupid ass people like this? I mean, I don't know which one is crazier, her or Alexandria Occasional Cortex, or the Jew hating Ilan Omar or whatever her name is, and the other couple Arabs that are blatantly anti Semite. This country's going to hell in a handbasket, and it's called the Democratic Party. Yeah, more stupid bills, and it's probably because her dad had stupid balls. Because when I read that, it sounded like the best part of her rolled down the crack of her mama's behind and ended up with brown stain on the mattress. Because you really got to be losing some marbles and screws to come up with that kind of idea to retaliate against an anti-abortion bill. Personally, I'm pro-choice, but myself, I'm against abortion. But I believe it's a person's right to choose because it's their life, their body. It's not my place to decide for them. We have a good Lord that will stand in judgment one day, and that's for Him to judge, not me. But when I read that, man, I'm telling you what, I busted out laughing, and I was at work, and they were like, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "Wait a minute, let me read this to y'all." And I read it to them, and they were all laughing too. And I'm telling you, I almost peed a little bit. It was so funny. In Georgia, somebody that liberal to actually, wow. In Georgia, so Republican, it's pathetic. And for that to come up, it blew me away. Yeah, we got a few damn idiots in the Republican Party, too. The one party that I would be a loyal member to is the Libertarian Party, but they can't get their act together and put anybody up on a podium that's actually got enough damn sense to be able to, have an intelligent conversation, let alone debate. They've got the party itself has got good ideas, less government, more personal freedom, but they want to put a patsy president up there that the party tells them what to do, and that's never going to work. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people that need to be neutered. Hell, just in my hometown, I could keep a vet busy for weeks. Because sometimes the gene pool does not need to be contaminated any more than it already has been. Somebody peed in the gene pool in Georgia and in Washington. I'm surprised the cat's not at the door crying to get in. Maybe he's finally learned that he don't get to come in until the other one comes up and is ready to come in. I'll let him in, eat, put him back out, and he'll cry and cry. And it's like, nope, the other cat ain't in, you ain't in. Sorry, buddy. But I'm sure before it's over with, he'll be at the front door before I go to bed. Meow. He whines more than my ex-wife. Virginia, you are almost 100% correct on that. The Secretary of State has more power than the president does. According to the Constitution, the Secretary of State can do more than the President of the United States can. And most people don't realize that. And to think, we had Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State for 4 years, or 8 years, or however many years. And that scared the hell out of me because she had more power than the president at her fingertips and could have done a lot worse than what she did. Luckily, she didn't realize what kind of authority she had. Yep, Washington, D.C. has a little bit of every idiot this country has to offer there. Which I can't say that. There are a few good politicians, but for the most part, 75% of the Democrats are dumbasses, and about 30% of the Republicans are fucking morons. They tried again to bring up another bill to impeach the president. First of all, you got to have an impeachable offense, and you haven't proven one yet. So how are you going to do that? And Nancy Pelosi, bless her pea-picking heart, she's an idiot herself, but she realized it and she shut them down again for the third time. Oh, of course they voted for it because they don't just get paid their salary. They get gifts and dinners and meals from all these lobbyists. Plus, what better way to get money from the people than by imposing another tax on something that almost everyone has to have, which is fuel. Even in the restaurant business, the trucks that we get in to deliver our products to us, they put a fuel surcharge on there. Instead of raising the price of the items themselves to make it look cheap, they leave the prices alone, but then they throw on a $40 or $50 fuel surcharge because they've got to pay more in tax because of the fuel taxes. Yeah, they were probably swearing on Qurans like a couple of those House members. But you can't believe anything a politician tells you unless you know that politician personally. And even then, you can't trust half of it. And it's not like we don't pay enough now in fuel tax anyway. I mean, there are other things that we can tax that don't involve taxing everybody because who does more driving? Ultra rich people or lower to middle income people? Lower to middle income people. We have to drive back to the work every day. The rich people, they don't have to. They can stay home. They can do whatever they want. Plus, penny here, a penny there doesn't hurt them. It hurts us. But the government doesn't see it that way. But if there's an item that can be taxed, you can bet the government's going to figure out a way to tax it. That's the only reason why they haven't completely legalized marijuana yet, is because they're watching all these states that have to see how they tax it. And once they figure out how to regulate that tax and they get it all worked out, you can bet marijuana will no longer be a Schedule II drug. It'll be Schedule 4 or a Schedule 5 over the counter and taxed to hell and back. And then they'll go after the people who grow it. You'll have to have a special license just to grow it. You won't be allowed to grow it for your personal consumption in your garden. And if you do, they'll only let you have like maybe 5 plants a year. But it's all about taxes. This can of beer, half of it was taxes. That's how much they put on alcohol. It's about a 50% tax on alcohol. That's right. They know they can't stop people from smoking it. The only thing that has deterred people from smoking it is getting jobs where they have to go through a drug screen. And that only stops them for a little while. Even your truck drivers, any company that has semis on the road, they have to drug test randomly 25% of their employees every year. That's a federal law. Random drug test for 25% of your employees every year for CDL license. And this is a small company. They know all their employees. They know which ones not to randomly select. So they get by with it. Pass the initial drug screen, you're hired. We know you smoke weed. We're not going to bother you anymore. But we know this guy doesn't. So he's liable to have to pee 2-3 times a year because they know he doesn't smoke weed. And it all boils down to money. Because as soon as they legalize it recreationally across the entire country, then you're going to have to get a license to grow it at home. You're going to have to pay one way or another. And then that's really going to throw the insurance companies in a bind because they're not going to know what to do, because used to employers would workman's comp and all that. First thing they do, you get injured, they drug test you. You show up positive, well, they don't pay the workman's comp bill. They legalize this stuff across the board, they're going to have to pay the workman's comp bill. So that's going to raise insurance rates because they're going to say it was the marijuana that made them have the accident to begin with. They were smoking on the job, even if they weren't. So then those insurance rates go up. Wages are going to go down. Unless Congress passes a minimum wage hike, which I don't see happening in for the next couple of years. So nobody's going to be getting a raise. There's not going to be any upward movement at all in society, all because of insurance companies. And that's where Obama went wrong with his health care plan. Instead of mandating all of us to have insurance, he should have been mandating the insurance companies on what they could and could not do as far as the charges that they were doing, and getting rid of some of these middlemen like CVS Pharmacy. They have I can't think of the word that I need to use, but it's basically a subsidiary company that's a middleman between pharmaceutical manufacturers and pharmaceutical retailers. And they handle most of the in between. And they charge an exorbitant high, high rate. That's why drugs are so much cheaper in other countries for the same damn drug, because they don't have the middlemen that we do with greedy pockets. And that's where Obama fucked up. Should have went after the insurance companies instead of going after the people to make them buy insurance. Because if I'm making $50,000 a year and I'm 25 years old, I'll pay that $600-700 fine a year, not to have to pay $600-700 a month for insurance. Because I'm 25 years old, I'm relatively healthy. I don't, unless there's an unforeseeable accident, I'll take the chance. Now I'm 48 years old. I need the insurance, but I can't afford it because the insurance companies charge too much. There's the catch. He should have gone after them, but he didn't go after them. He went after all of us, thinking that if all of us had it, it would lower the cost, which in reality, we see now that it raised the cost because so many low income people were getting it for free. They had to raise the rates. Next year, it's going to be a whole new ball game because there's not going to be a mandate that everybody has to have health insurance. Let's see if the premiums drop or if they go up. I'm betting in the next few years, without us being made to buy insurance, premiums will remain the same, or either they will start to go down because people will not buy it if they do not have to have it. Just like car insurance. People buy liability once their car is paid for, and that's it. They don't buy full coverage anymore because why would I want to spend that money whenever 9 times out of 10 you get in a wreck, it's bad enough, your car is totaled anyway. You've wasted your money on full coverage because they're not going to give you the actual value it costs you to go get a new car. They're going to give you the value of the car at the time of the wreck according to the mileage that was on it. And they're also going to give it to you in the poorest condition that the car can be sold at, the very lowest blue book value for your year, make, and model of car. So you're better off with just going liability, and whenever you have a wreck, go buy you a new car and be done with it. And that's all I keep on mine is liability. And I keep med pay on it in case I do wind up getting in a wreck with somebody and it's their fault and they don't have insurance, which is a good possibility because a lot of people don't have insurance. And it only costs them $500 in the state of Georgia to drive around with no insurance and get caught. $500 misdemeanor fine. It's not a felony. Doesn't go on your driver's record. It's just a civil infraction. but I'm waiting to see how this agricultural hemp works out. They've made it legal to grow hemp in all 50 states, but it's got to be less. There's a certain percentage of THC that it can have, and if it goes over, then it's illegal because then it's considered marijuana. And I'm waiting to see how this turns out in the next year or so, because if so, Morgan's going to start growing hemp, and Morgan's going to get his buddy that he graduated high school with to somehow or another diagnose me with something where I can get medical marijuana, and I'm going to grow my own. Oh, yeah. It's just like in the state of Georgia. You got to have insurance, period. Amen. If you don't have insurance, they will suspend your registration on your car. And any cop that gets behind you, the first thing they do is they've got a computer that's hooked up to their camera, and it looks at your tag, it reads it, it runs it. It lets them know right then whether or not your tag is valid, whether or not you have insurance that's valid, and lets them know who owns the car, whether or not there's any warrants out for you, everything. So, best bet is to keep people. And a lot of people don't realize that, and that's how they get caught. Personally, I'm not going to let a cop stay behind me long enough anyway. I see one behind me, I'm pulling into a stranger's yard if I got to, because I know the longer they stay behind me, the better the chances are they're going to pull me over for something stupid. I've been pulled over 4 or 5 times in the last 6 months for stupid stuff. Like they said I was weaving, or I wasn't going the speed limit, that I was lower than the speed limit and not in tune with the flow of traffic. And I'm like, so what's your point? I'm driving 50 miles an hour because that's where my car gets the best gas mileage, and I'm not in a hurry. Do I have to drive 55 at least whenever everybody else is passing me doing 65 and 70? Shouldn't you be worried about them and not me? And then trying to get me to roll my other window down so that there'll be a cross breeze and they can get a chance to smell to see if they smell marijuana. First of all, you ain't gonna find that in my car anyway, because I don't have it. Second of all, I'm not rolling my window down no more than this, because I can hear you, you can hear me, and there's no reason for me to roll my window down. And the Supreme Court's ruled on the constitutionality of me having to roll my window completely down, and I don't have to. As long as I can hear them, they can hear me, and I can pass paperwork back and through, that's all I got to do. And I won't pull over in the middle of nowhere. You'll follow me to a well-lit area before I pull over. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. You can charge me with eluding if you want to, or running or whatever, but if we're out on a highway in the middle of nowhere, Morgan ain't stopping. I don't know if you a real cop or not. There's fake cops out there. I read about one just the other day, pulled somebody over, and then when a real cop stopped to help render aid to his fellow brother in arms, that dude jumped in his fake cop car and hauled ass. And the cop said, "What did he pull you over for?" The lady said, "I don't know. Can you tell me?" He was a cop. Come to find out, he wasn't a cop. They caught him about 10 miles down the road trying to pull somebody else over. Fake cop. you can never be too careful with your life nowadays. And I think we have already discussed in the conversation that there are crazy people everywhere. You are right. Hemp is really good as a soil builder, and there are so many uses for it. It's pathetic. I mean, not just the fiber. I mean, hemp seed oil will probably be a great oil for um, cooking with. It might even be a great oil for, like, most of us have a can of 3-in-1 oil somewhere around or something like that to lubricate things with. It may turn into something like that. Hemp seed, put it in bird feed. I mean, there are many uses for the plant. But if I can get my doctor to prescribe me medical marijuana, oh yeah, Morgan's growing his own. Because I haven't grown any in about 20, 25 years. And the last that I grew was pretty damn good. And I've learned a lot about growing plants since then. And I'm pretty sure I could grow some really good stuff now. And Morgan would not have to have anxiety medicine. He would not have to have pain medicine for his back. He could come off all of that and save a ton of money. But they won't in Georgia, they won't legalize it for pain management. Now, if I've got glaucoma, sure, I can get it for glaucoma to reduce the pressure in the back of my eyes. If I've got cancer, I can get it for the side effects of chemotherapy. And there's a few other procedures I can get the oil, but it can't have THC in it. There's only about 6 or 7 legal afflictions that you can get medical marijuana for in Georgia. And I'm not that far from Florida. And I could probably go down there and get a prescription for medical marijuana and buy it down there. But then I risk the trafficking across state line charges. And in Georgia, it would still be illegal for me to possess and to use, even though it's prescribed by a doctor in Florida and legally purchased in Florida from a medical dispensary. So either way, I'm screwed. But as soon as they legalize it in Georgia, Morgan don't need no more pain medicine. He don't need no more anxiety medicine. He just needs about 5 minutes to roll one and take a couple puffs, put it down, get me a. I don't like orange juice, or I don't like citrus fruit very much at all. But orange juice for cottonmouth works wonders. And all I need is about 5-10 minutes to get me a couple puffs, a swig of orange juice for cottonmouth, and maybe a stick of beef jerky for the munchies, and I'm good to go for several hours. And don't have to worry about none of the side effects that I do taking this medication. And I'm quite sure I could probably even come off my blood pressure medication if I could smoke marijuana legally. It relaxes you that much. And I'm sure it would lower my blood pressure. And I've been seeing in the pharmacies here, they're starting to carry the CBD oils that don't have any THC in them. And whenever I was getting my Xanax refilled the other day for $70 for a little jar the size of say the Bengay in the little jar, 79.99, excuse me, $80 for that jar. And you're supposed to rub it on the area that you got soreness and aches and pains, and it's supposed to relieve your pain. I ain't paying $80 for no damn Bengay that got pot in it. I ain't got stupid stamped on my forehead. If I got pain, I'm gonna smoke it. That shit ain't gonna soak in your damn skin and make you stop hurting. You're probably right. Years ago, ABC did a special called Pot of Gold, and my county was featured in it. The sheriff at the time had a brother who was in federal prison for growing marijuana on a flatbed trailer that he would move around every day to a different spot. And he had a lazy boy chair on there, a generator, a TV, and a little bitty refrigerator full of beer. And he'd sit there and watch TV and drink beer all day long on the flatbed trailer watching his marijuana grow. And the sheriff said he had no idea his brother was doing that. And from the place where they arrested the guy, you could see the sheriff's house. There were no trees between the trailer and the sheriff's house, but yet he had no idea. He'd never seen his brother grow marijuana. Oh, I had high blood pressure before I was ever on pain medication. It runs in my family. But I'm sure as soon as they legalize marijuana and I can smoke that on a regular basis, my blood pressure will go down. They say watching fish makes your blood pressure go down, and I kind of believe it because I stare at my fish in my aquariums quite a bit, and it is relaxing. But I can't carry my aquarium with me to work, so don't do me no good there. And I know my blood pressure climbs sky high when I'm at work. Stupid people at the drive-through talking on their damn cell phones when they're supposed to be talking to us and ordering, and then asking stupid questions like, "Does that come with fries?" Well, there's a fucking picture of it on the menu. That's what you get. Duh. Yeah, pain will make your blood pressure skyrocket. It'll make your whole endocrine system out of balance. Because if you're in pain, it don't just affect that part of your body that's hurt. It affects all of it because then your cells go into overtime needing this hormone or that hormone just to stay functioning. But they don't. Tomorrow I have to be in Douglas, which is half an hour away at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I see now that it's 11 and I still got to finish up this. It's going to take me about an hour. So I guess it's, I guess it's about time we're going to have to call it a night because I got to draw a chart. Because I've already done the math. So I got to draw a chart and then I got to answer the questions. And that's going to be the fun part because that means I have to write and complete sentences, and I don't normally write and complete sentences. But anyway, guys, I'm glad you pointed that out because I had no idea it's 11. I'm still getting used to this time change. I've still got jet lag. used to it. It didn't bother me at all. But now it takes me about a week to get used to it. I almost miss getting on here because the time change and it getting dark an hour later than normal, and I'm not, it's starting to get, I better go see what time it is. I got a live stream coming up at 9 tonight. Let me see. And sure enough, it was 8:30 and I came inside. Oh, I'll get some rest because I'm going to finish this, work on this. Then I'll take me a couple Tylenol PM and I'll hit the sack. As long as my phone doesn't come unplugged and run its battery down tonight, I'll get up on time. Which is did that last night, but it's the first time in months it's done that. I should have checked it before I went to bed. I always do because the charger thing will fall out. But I didn't check it last night, and that's all my fault. Yeah, it is a long day since you've been up since 4 a.m. By now, I would have already been out cold. Yeah, I hope work don't drive y'all crazy tomorrow, any of you, because I don't have to be at work again until Friday at 5 because I'm switching my phone service over from cellular to a home phone through the company I get my internet from. Because I did the math and it's going to save me 120 bucks a year. So anywhere I go, my cell phone works because there's free Wi-Fi everywhere nowadays. So I can get online whenever I want to. It's just that I won't be able to talk anywhere I want to. And I really don't care about that. I don't use the phone that much anyway. So, and if I'm at home, I might answer the phone, I might not. So they can't call me in because the phone don't work. And I'm not going to have another phone until next month. Whenever my monthly bill comes due, then I'll add it on and nah, can't call me in. Well, you need to have your phone turned on. Then you need to give me a raise. It's that simple. Things cost money, and if I'm not making enough money, then I do without things. And if you say I need a phone, then I'm telling you I need a raise. Anyway, you guys have a great night and a good day tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you on the next live stream, hopefully. Until then, take care of yourselves and God bless you. Talk to you later. Good night.